All right, can you hear me now? Should be working now. Let me know in the comments whether it's working. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Okawa, for checking on me. I have different scenes set up, and I guess, when I switched the audio off for one of the scenes, then for this scene, I also switched off. So thank you for letting me know. Not much, though, just saying, basically, welcome to the live stream. I'm going to do a Q&A. If you follow me on Instagram, you can put questions there. If you're live right now, you can drop the questions here in the chat. I already have a couple of questions I'm going to go over, but first I was just starting off with where I've been, which is a combination of more clients and traveling around to a lot of competitions. So I knew a lot of competitions were going to be scheduled for the second half of this year, and so I already knew it was going to be a busy schedule. And obviously, as I get more and more clients, then that takes up a lot of time as well, doing all those weekly update emails, watching the videos, sending out new programs, everything like that. So while a couple of international competitions I'm not going to be going to anymore, and I'll explain that some more later on, there's a lot of stuff here in Florida we have for the rest of the year. And also this weekend, I'm actually going to the California State Championships to help out with their 2-day competition. So I'll be gone, Friday to Monday to go all the way to California, help out. So lots of stuff going on, so I didn't have time to put into making planned videos where I come up with a topic, I record everything, I edit it, upload all that kind of stuff like that. But I figure I can do something like this every once in a while where I'm doing a Q&A and be able to answer whatever questions people have, maybe do some form checks, do things like that. And then people can always go in and watch the live stream and go learn about all the different topics. And maybe have time, I can clip each of the topics or each of the questions into its own video and put it up. That should be easier, just clipping the video and then uploading it as a separate video rather than having to, prepare everything and edit everything and then upload it. So hopefully this will make me a little bit more consistent. Okay. As far as what I got coming up, I'll go right here real quick to the USA Powerlifting website, and then I'll go over to the calendar. And this will also let me check out this live stream, see how it works when I'm trying to use my Google Chrome to go to a website while I also have my video, and see how my computer can handle this in 720p and 24 frames per second. We'll see how that goes. So as far as Florida, here's all the stuff we have coming up. So the next meet in Florida I'll be at is October 9th and 10th, another 2-day competition. So that'll be busy. That'll be in the Jacksonville area. Then we have our state championship in Orlando, November 21st. Then we have a Tampa meet December 4th, 1 day. That should be a big one, 2 platforms. Then the week after, we have this Florida Senior Games, December 12th in the Fort Lauderdale area. And then this was the original competition that I was running, December 18th in Miami, the Seoul Open. And then the other meet that's not here on the calendar is we have our Florida Special Olympics State Fall Classic. It will be right before this one, November 12th and 13th. It's not a USA Powerlifting sanctioned competition, so it's not on this calendar, but it is a competition I've been running the last few years. So that will be another competition as well. So this weekend, I'm not going to the SoCal one. I'll be in California, but that's still one. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus the Special Olympics one. So 7 still left here on the calendar to finish off the year. And then we'll see about these ones going forward with the whole situation with USAPL and the IPF, whether it's going to happen or not. So that's kind of like an idea of what I got coming up. And another reason why I'm trying to do these Q&As, and also grabbing this camera, I can also hopefully, shoot some photos at like my meet that I can give to lifters, maybe do live stream, where in January I used a iPhone 7 to do the live stream for the competition. And between using the iPhone and using it through Skype and being on Wi-Fi, so like that, it was a little bit laggy. So it's another thing I get to test out with this camera and through USB, whether it's going to be better, so that I can maybe do live streams with this going forward rather than with the iPhone 7. All right, well, I guess we'll get into the questions, and we have a question here in the chat about, I got 2 left knee sleeves from Stoic, doesn't matter. What I would have you look into, I've never had a Stoic knee sleeve, so I'm not sure exactly what it is, but oftentimes the label on the knee sleeve is the size of the knee sleeve and not whether it's left and right. They are not left and right knee sleeves most likely. They're both probably exactly the same, and it's just a size large. So if you did happen to get a size large knee sleeve and they both say L on them, then that's probably the reason why. They're both just saying that they're size large and not actually that they're both lefts and that you need an R for a right. So be sure to look into that. You can always, wherever you bought it from, or if you got it from Stoic, always email them and double confirm that. But most likely they're just size large and not a left and a left. All right, let's see what other questions we have. Let me hop over to Instagram real quick, see if anyone submitted anything else. Yeah, so there you go from the chat. But yeah, they're both a size large, not a left and right. So especially for things like knee sleeves and wrist straps where you have two of them, or even lifting straps and stuff like that, a lot of manufacturers just make one uniform size and one uniform type, and then that's it is. You don't get a left and a right because it's just cheaper as far as cost and everything like that to just have one size, one format, and you just put on your left arm or your right arm or your left knee or your right knee or whatever like that, rather than having the two variations. So someone asked me here for the first question from Instagram is my thoughts on the Chico methodology. And we don't always get to see the insides of what some coach may be doing specifically with their athletes and what Chico may be doing like now versus before. But we do have access to the free programs that are out there and the stuff that he posts in the forums or other coaches underneath him post in the Chico forums and people that use the Chico app and stuff like that. And there are definitely some things that I like about it. Some things maybe where I don't know as much or I don't necessarily agree with. But for example, one of the things is that he tends to do higher frequency. So it's not like you're only squatting one time a week and bench pressing one time a week and maybe deadlifting like, every other week, like some people do that are doing very low frequency. He tends to do more of a moderate to high frequency depending on what level you are. Obviously, if you're a complete beginner just getting started lifting, he may do very low volume, very low frequency, just getting the athlete started. But once they're more in a moderate range and getting to advanced range, you're doing the lifts, whether it's the competition variation or a separate variation, multiple times per week. So you may be doing it 2 times per week, 3 times per week. You may even doing it multiple times within a session. So you may do a bench press and then a squat and then a bench press again. So you're getting some practice again with that bench press at the very end. Could be the same variation or a different variation, but just going through the process of warming up and doing your setup and executing a lift gets you more practice that way. So that's one of the things I like is the moderate to high frequency. The other thing I like is that he uses moderate to high volume at lower intensities. So a lot of people want to go and work up to RP at an 8 or RP single at an 8 or RP single at a 9 or a triple at RP 8 or a triple at RP 9 because people always want to go higher intensity, want to get close to maxing out. It's obviously fun, everything like that. You get all hyped up for it, everything, but it can be more difficult to do higher volume at those higher intensities because the fatigue is just going to build up faster than doing lower RPEs like RP 6 to 7 work and doing more volume, doing more sets, more exercises, more times per week, everything like that. So I do like that Chico tends to keep the RPs lower, especially farther out from a competition. A lot of RP 5, 6, 7. I know he uses percentages and he has this average percentage. I don't remember off the top of my head, maybe somewhere in the 60 to 70% range that he's hitting as an average intensity for that session. So he likes to keep that lower so that you can get, again, more volume in for a single session, more volume in for a single week, more volume in for a entire month or entire training cycle. And also because it is lower RPE, you can also focus on good technique. So your technique isn't gonna break down, and so you can get a lot of reps in with better technique and kind of ingrain that proper motor pattern. Whether it is like hitting proper depth on the squat with your knees out and not rounding over on the deadlift or not letting your elbows flare out too much on the bench press, those kinds of things. So you're able to maintain good technique for a lot of reps and be able to do a lot of volume with that lower intensity, lower RPE. So I like that as well. He tends to, even though he does some variations, tends to do a lot of the competition lifts as well. So I tend to at least have 1 time per week of the competition lifts in throughout the entire cycle. And as I get closer and closer to competition, increase that specificities to where maybe 2 times per week or 3 times per week you're doing the competition lift, versus some other people may do like, 2 to 4 times per week exercise, but every single one's a variation. So you might do like a feet up bench, you might do a close grip bench, you might do an overhead press, and then do like a board press. You're never actually doing the competition bench press, which I'm not as much of a fan of. I'd rather have at least one competition bench press in there, maybe for the most important high intensity, low volume day. And then for the other sessions, if you want to do a feet up bench or close grip bench or board press or pin press, whatever, like that's fine. But at least keeping one session in so you get that weekly practice and then building it up over time. So you might switch the close grip bench to a competition bench, 8 weeks out. 6 weeks out, you might switch the board press to more competition bench. And the last 3 to 4 weeks might be all competition bench work. So I like that Sheik also keeps that higher frequency of the competition list. So those are probably like 3 of the main ones, is the frequency, the volume, and the specificity. So there may be some things that I do that he doesn't do. Like I might put in more accessory work. I see that, his programs do have some accessory work, like, dumbbell chest flies, or maybe he has like, some kind of back work or maybe some kind of hamstring work. But I feel like from what I've seen online, as far as the free stuff that's out there that may be older stuff, is I tend to do a little bit more accessory work. So I like to do at least some kind of unilateral knee extension. So I like to rotate between Bulgarian split squats, lunges, and step ups. I like to do, try and get triceps in 2 times a week, biceps 1 to 2 times a week. I like to do a vertical pull. So if the person could do pull-ups or chin-ups, they do that. If not, they can do a lat pull down. I like to do a horizontal pull. So they can do, barbell rows, dumbbell rows, seated cable rows, inverted rows. Depending on the schedule, they may be doing each of those 1 time a week or each of those 2 times a week. Sometimes I put in planks for people that need help with like bracing and breathing. And sometimes it can help with loosening up the hip flexors and the lower back, things like that. Other things I like to put in there is, sometimes I'll put in chest flies, sometimes I'll put in rear delt to counter all the pressing movements, and sometimes I'll put in cardio in there as well if the person needs the cardio. So there's a lot of accessory work in there as far as a vertical pull, a horizontal pull, biceps, triceps, rear delts, single leg, quad work. Sometimes RDLs with like a barbell or a dumbbell, sometimes barbell good mornings, but not as often. But just in general, I feel like I put more accessory work in. And then also he tends to do from some of the programs I've seen, a test day 4 weeks out from a competition, which I don't necessarily do. So he'll do 95% or maybe even more as a full-on test day 4 weeks out, and then kind of cruise into the competition, where I'd rather ramp up closer to the competition. So maybe 3 weeks out you're doing openers, 2 weeks out you're doing a second attempt, 1 week out maybe you're doing between a second and third attempt, and then kind of bringing things down. Or if you have more trouble recovery, you can always shift those over, where maybe you're doing the openers 1 week out and then doing that between second and third attempt 2 weeks out, doing that second attempt 3 weeks out, and then starting off with your opener 4 weeks out. So you're getting this ramp up in intensity and then tapering off before the meet and getting that super compensation, so you can do more in the competition, versus doing a full-on test for 4 weeks out and then just kind of bringing the intensity down and cruising into the competition. Obviously, it seems to work for him and his lifters, since he has put in his programs and people have used his programs and done it. I just personally don't do it that way. So those are some of the major differences. I have another question here from the Instagram about when is Bill McCarthy and I starting our own podcast, and we jokingly name it Bill and Arian's Excellent Podcast, for anyone who gets the reference. I would say if you want to see us on a podcast, you can just go to King of Lifts. So I'll just drop King of Lifts right now real quick, switch over to my browser. So if you go to Spotify or anywhere else like that, and then you just pull up the search, and you can always search King of Lifts right here. I have it right there on the favorites, obviously, but if you search King of Lifts, boom, you go there. There's all kinds of episodes where Bill McCarthy and I are on there. There's some where I'm on there with Ryan Lapidat, like this Bryce Krawczyk one. There's ones where I'm not on, I wasn't there for Anna Castellane's, but for the IPF World Fantasy League, Bill and I are on there. You can hear us for this, USAPL Exodus one. Bill and I are on there. Same with this USAPL suspended. So for now, if you want to hear Bill and I talk on podcasts, you can go over to Spotify or wherever else, go to the King of Lifts, and you can listen to us there. As far as us doing one together, it's difficult. It's a lot of work to, plan the day and time that you record it, do the recording, possibly edit it if you're going to put an intro, outro, some background music, clean up the audio, then, upload it somewhere, do the description and the art and all that kind of stuff like that. So then you promote on social media. So it turns into a lot of work. And, there's a lot of different podcasts out there. And I see some of the things that people have issues with is consistency, being able to record and upload consistently over a long time, like King List has done. Some other people haven't done that. After 6 months or 12 months, they kind of fall off. So for now, I'd rather just like whenever Bill and I can go on King List, we'll go on there, we'll talk shit, we'll do our thing, and then Ryan Lapidat takes care of all the uploading and promoting and everything like that. The other thing, like I said, right now it's very busy for the second half of the year for me with more clients now and more competitions, that it's just hard to kind of schedule it. When I'm traveling and stuff like that, it's like, oh, do I bring my stuff with me to get good quality audio, like the microphone and everything like that? Or do we just use like a phone and it's less, not as good quality? And also like depending on where you're at, if you're in a hotel room, if there's other noise and stuff like that, if you have a roommate, like, when I'm refereeing, oftentimes there's another referee that rooms with me in the hotel room. So different factors like that just make it a little bit more difficult logistically right now. Maybe in the future, next year, something like that would be something that we do together. We'll see how things go. It would have been easier if we did it last year when a lot of lifters couldn't train and I had a lot less clients. I had 60 or 75% of my clients drop off. I had a lot of free time at home, which is why I was instead doing the videos here on YouTube, 5 times a week. I was putting out a video just to get some information out there. It would have been easier for us if we did a podcast then than now. So it's a little bit more difficult now, but we'll see in the future. So over here on the YouTube chat, I see Tariq saying, hi, did you or your client experience AC joint pain? If yes, what did you do for this? So in general, if you are a lifter, especially if you're a powerlifter, you are going to deal with different types of pain and injury over your training career. So some could be more like, you can call them catastrophic, like if you tear a muscle or you break a bone or something like that. There are other ones that are like overuse injuries, like if you get tendinopathy in the elbows or in the knees, stuff like that, which can just be, you're doing too much training and maybe you don't have the mobility for it. And sometimes people just work around that, like whether they use like elbow sleeves, knee sleeve, a specialty bar, something like that to take the stress off it. But one of the more important things is figuring out, what the underlying cause is, what is causing the problem, whether it's one, what's the exercise causing a problem, and two, if it is like, volume, it's fatigue management. If it is like a lack of mobility, things like that you have to look into. So you may want to look into what the underlying cause is, what the issue is, to stop it from happening in the future. Now, if it's happening to you right now, I mean, that's a different problem as far as figuring out for the future what to do. But for now, solving it, depending on how painful it is and how bad it is, you're going to want to see a professional. You're going to want to go see a doctor. So a lot of times powerlifting coaches are, very specific in what they know. And that can be very specific to powerlifting technique, powerlifting programming, handling people at a powerlifting competition, but not necessarily all the aspects of prehab, rehab, injury prevention, things like that. So it depends on how much information a specific coach has. Obviously, with my lifters, we've dealt with a number of different issues, whether it's SI joint issue, AC joint issue, shoulder pain, hip pain, knee pain, back pain is kind of common for powerlifters, and also then, elbow pain, depending on, how flexible they are and how often they're benching and squatting, that kind of stuff. So what I'd say is if you're dealing with the pain right now, you should see how bad it is, how long it's lasted, and go see some kind of doctor that can, take a look at it, whether it's, X-ray, MRI, whatever they have to do, diagnose what the issue is, give you some kind of plan of how much time you should take off, what kind of rehab exercises to do to strengthen that area and bring yourself back to, 100% and back to be able to train pain-free. And then once you're able to get back to training pain-free, then that's when maybe you want to make those adjustments as far as what the underlying issue is. If, for example, if it's your hip pain, if doing sumo, 2, 3, or 4 times a week is causing hip pain, then you may need to look into reducing the frequency or doing, a conventional day or sumo day. If you have like, some kind of shoulder pain, you may want to look into what kind of grip width you're using, how often you're benching. With all of these, also you want to look at technique. If you're not, properly pulling the shoulder blades back and you're putting stress on the rotator cuff muscles and everything like that. So those are things you want to look into. If you're dealing with elbow pain, you may want to look into what kind of mobility you have at the shoulder joint, and if that is kind of restrictions causing issues at the elbow, and obviously what kind of volume you're doing, so people can handle squatting 2, 3, 4 times a week. Sometimes people, once they hit, let's say 3 times a week, then the elbow pain starts coming. So they may have to bring, again, the frequency down, or maybe do some kind of variation like a SSB squat and then a competition squat. So with the SSB, they're not putting stress on the area. Other things is, for some people, it's the bench press. If they're going very far down into the bench press and they're moving their joints through a big range of motion through lots of reps and lots of sets and lots of days, then that can cause issues as well. So then maybe they have to look into, again, first of all, technique, but also then looking into what variations they're doing. Maybe they need to switch it to a limited range of motion. Maybe they need to reduce the volume, that kind of stuff. So you should figure out what's specific for you. It's hard to give out generic advice here, but if you're dealing with the pain, see if you can talk with a medical professional and then figure out what the underlying issue is and trying to fix that going forward. All right, we got another question here from Eminem09 or MNMT09. How much is too much of a sandbag on a RPE set? I tend to count a set if it's 1 RPE under at least, then use that information to increase the next set or for next time. Prescribed at 7, but do at 6. So for me, I like to give a RPE range. So I may give someone like a half an RPE range or a full RPE range, because it can be difficult to hit an RPE right on the dot, especially if it's low RPE. Like if you tell someone, hey, hit 4 reps at RPE 6, it's going to be difficult to hit that weight exactly on the dot. And it's more difficult to gauge, like, is it really an RPE 6 or is it a 5.5 or is it 6.5? Whereas if you're going to a high RPE, like let's say you want to hit a single out of 9, it's easier to kind of get an idea of what your single out of 9 should be, warm up to that weight, and then be able to get a better assessment of what weight you're capable of that day, and to assess what is an actual RPE 9 for that day. So I like to give people a range. So I might tell someone, okay, work up to a single, but I want it to be between RPE 7.5 and 8.5. So maybe the initial idea was an RPE 8, but we're giving this range of 7.5 to 8.5. So if they do happen to miss it, and let's just say an RPE 8 on the day would have been 300 pounds, and they hit 290 or 295, and it's a 7.5, they say, okay, I'm in the range, I'm at 7.5, that's considered a single, shut it down, go down to the back down sets. Whereas if you tell someone it has to be an RPE 8, and they do the 295 at RPE 7.5, then they have to be like, okay, do I repeat the weight and maybe the RPE gets more difficult? Do I go up in weight and do I go up 5 pounds and maybe hit the RPE? Or do I go up 10 or 15 pounds? What if I overshoot? So someone may jump from 295 to 305 and then they're like RPE 8.5. And so now they undershot it by half an RPE, and then to compensate, they overshot it by half an RPE. And so it can be difficult that way to work with those exact RPEs. So usually I like giving a range. For most of my people, since we are doing lower RPE work, I give them a full 1 RPE range. So if it's like a beginning of the week, higher volume, lower intensity, and we're doing working sets, I will give them, let's say RPE 6 to 7, okay? And since they're doing multiple sets, 4 or 5 sets, the RPE 6 to 7 is usually for the first set. So we're setting the weight for the straight sets based on that RPE range. So boom, they hit RPE 6 for, a set of 5 for whatever that weight it ends up being. And then they stay at that weight for their following sets, and the RPE may slowly go up. So you may go from, like, let's say 6 to, let's say, the second one's a 6, the third one's a 6.5, the fourth one's a 6.5, and then the last one, 5th set, is RPE 7. So the RPE went up, which is fine, because for that training protocol, we want to build up fatigue. So that's for the purpose of the session, and you did just that. You went from RPE 6 to RPE 7 across 5 sets. So you accumulated that volume, accumulated that fatigue, which your body will have to adapt to. So I like doing those ranges. When we get to heavier weights, like again, let's say you're doing a single and you want to work up to your opener, I will give the person a prescribed weight of what their single RP8 or single for an opener should be, and then also try and give them that exact RP to try and hit the RP8. And then again, if they're a little bit unsure, they can always, just stop there, maybe repeat the single. For some of my clients, they'll message me and send me the video. I can give my feedback to them live, and then they can go and make the adjustments based on what I say. And same thing if it's a higher one. If we're working up to a second attempt, it's like RP9 or between a second and third, I give them a RP 9.5 because it's going to be easier to hit that exact RPE. So hopefully that helped you out. If you have any more specific questions about, sandbagging RPEs and your programming like that, you can always drop that in the chat. Also, as far as like sandbagging RPEs or sandbagging the training in general, it depends on how far you are out from a competition. I say the further out you are from a competition, the more it's okay if you undershoot or sandbag, because the goal then should be, doing more volume, building up specific weaknesses. You can always add an additional set, or you can always increase the weight or the RPE or get a better RPE in the following week because you have so much time to a competition. But if you're a couple weeks out and you're trying to do, your second attempt, your opener, you're trying to figure out your opener, at that point, you want to be a little bit more concerned with being accurate, okay, and being like strategically aggressive when you need to take the proper weight and hit the RP, rather than sandbagging. Let's say, your opener week, you're supposed to do RP8 and you do RP 7 or 6. And then your second attempt week, you're supposed to do an RP9, you end up hitting an RP8 or 7. And so now you're undershooting on all the important weeks where you're trying to get your body prepared for that heavy weight and figure out your attempt selection for the competition. And now the sandbag is kind of messing with you there. So where you are in the training cycle matters as well. Let me see what else we got on Instagram, if we have any more questions on there. And then I'll get to Dun Lu, I'll get to your question, or if anyone else wants to throw a question in there, they can. Don't got anything over on Instagram right now. I kind of put it in there short notice. I put this live stream in there short notice as well because, I want to kind of, like I said at the beginning, for anyone who's new, is I want to test out the live stream with this camera, see how my computer can handle it. Right now, we're doing 720p, 24 frames per second. So hopefully that's not too choppy for you. Hopefully there's not too many drop frames. Let me take a look at the stats real quick and see. As far as the stats, it looks like it's not too bad as far as drop frames or skip frames. Looks like we're not using too much CPU. You guys can always comment and let me know whether you think the stream looks good or whether it's a little bit choppy, because on my screen it kind of looks like it's a little bit slow, like it can't quite keep up. I'll watch the video back later and see how it looks and see what kind of improvements I can make. But we'll go to the next question here on the YouTube chats. Dunlier says, what are some tips you would give for increasing your arch on bench press? So there's a couple of different ways that you can look at this, and depending on the person that you can attack this. One is just like learning the proper technique and where to position your body as far as how to actually arch. Like for some people, it's like difficult for them to figure out, difficult for them the first time to figure out when someone tells them like, hey, arch, or hey, pull your shoulders towards your hips, or like, hey, pull your legs back as far as possible. Some people are just like, have never done it before, so it's hard for them to picture it. Looks like my stream is stream status went to poor, so I'm going to give it a second, see if the Wi-Fi kind of catches up. Yeah, and someone said it's a little bit choppy. Give it a couple more seconds, see if it improves. It was saying excellent and green before. Now it's saying yellow and poor. I am on Wi-Fi, so I don't know if there's any kind of drops there. Looks like it's still stuck at poor. So I'm not sure what happened there. There we go. Pop back to green and excellent. So hopefully it's better for you all now. So what I was saying is for some people, it's just like figuring out what it takes to get a proper setup in the bench press and get as big of an arch as possible. And then the second part may be working on flexibility at certain areas if things are tight. Okay. And you may be able to notice that more. Like some days are harder for you to get in position than others if your like hip flexors feel tight or something like that. So we'll start off with the first one as far as like how to position yourself. A big thing is pulling those shoulder blades back, like you're pinching them together behind you, and also pulling them down. So especially pulling the shoulder blades back and pulling the shoulders themselves back puts them in a safer position, but that also naturally pulls that rib cage and that chest up. So naturally that's going to arch your chest up and reduce that range of motion. And for people who have more of that range of motion in the shoulder blades, they can really pull those shoulder blades back, then obviously you're going to be able to pull that rib cage up more and get a bigger arch. Also, for people who just happen to have a bigger rib cage, some people just, thicker people, or, just have more space in a rib cage or have a bigger rib cage, are going to be able to raise that up more and be able to get a bigger arch and shorten that range of motion. The other thing is getting your feet in a position where you can really push your weight up onto your shoulders and up onto your traps rather than having it all sit kind of in your hips and kind of having your hips just relaxed on the bench. So for a lot of people, it's pulling the feet back as far as possible. So you want to pull your feet back behind your knees, try and get them underneath your hips, underneath your back. So then you are basically pulling the knee joint below the hip joint, pulling those hips into extension. And then when you drive your legs, you're pushing all that weight up onto your shoulders and your traps. So that can be another way to get basically the arch of the bottom part and also get that leg drive to maintain your stability. The other way for some people is to bring out the feet very far forward instead. So instead of having your shins like, completely vertical and your knee kind of being at 90 degrees, you're either pulling them really far back or you're pushing them really far forward. So some people will bring them really far forward and be able to still get the weight onto their shoulders, because when they're really far forward, they're still trying to push their toes to their front of their shoes. They're trying to push their body up the bench, and that's going to shift all that weight up. So one way you can see this, if you do either setup of your position your feet, what you can do is kind of relax and then think about pushing your toes to the front of your shoes and holding it for 5 seconds, and then relax again, and then try and push again. So you can feel and see that difference if you're videoing yourself, is when you're pushing, you can feel all that weight going up onto your traps. You can feel that chest coming up. You can feel your hips being more engaged. And then when you relax, you can see your hips will drop and your arch will naturally drop a little bit. So as far as positioning, that's what you want to look into. Squeezing those shoulder blades together as much as you can, pulling them down away from your ears. Okay, you don't want to be shrugged up. You want to be pulling them down as much as you can. Okay, trying to pull your feet either all the way back as much as you can or more forward, driving those toes to the front of your shoes to push all your weight up through the arch and onto your shoulders. And that's going to get you more of that decline, get the rib cage and chest as high as possible, and reduce that range of motion. Obviously, from there, the grip width matters too. The more narrow your grip width is, you're going to most likely have a longer range of motion. The wider the grip width, then you're going to have a shorter range of motion. So that, in combination with the arch, can then limit the range of motion, put your shoulders in a better position as far as safety, put your pecs in a better position as far as strength, and then be able to have a tight setup to push. As far as like different mobility stuff, you can look into mobility of your shoulders. So if you feel like you have tight shoulders and you can't really squeeze them back together, you can look into different warm-up stuff that you can do for the shoulder to kind of loosen up that area, give you some more range of motion to really pull them back. And then the other thing is, if you feel like you're tight in the hips, then you can look into things like, for example, for your hip flexors. Sometimes I have people kind of do a Bulgarian split squat where they put their back leg on the bench itself and just go into the bottom of a Bulgarian split squat and just sit there and feel that stretch on the forward leg. Okay, you're going to feel a little bit of a stretch. And then on the leg that's on the bench itself, you're going to feel the stretch there as well. Especially in that front where that hip flexor is, you're going to feel a little stretch there. And then you can switch and do the other side as well. And that can help with stretching out that hip flexor so you can get those hips as far into extension as possible and really get that leg drive and get those hips up high. Okay. Other things people will do sometimes for their actual spine or actual back if they want, it's kind of like foam roll. So what you can do is, on the middle of your back, you can put a foam roller, hold in a certain spot in the middle of your back, and then move your shoulders and your arms through a range of motion to kind of stretch out that area that's being pinned by the foam roller, and then move it to a different spot and do the same thing. So this kind of goes back to, again, the shoulder mobility and a little bit of the shoulder blades and the upper back and stuff like that. So things like that over time can help, or especially if you're tight someday from a squat or deadlift session, then you can do that as part of your warm-up to get you ready for that arch and doing it for the bench press. So hopefully that helps you out. If you have any more questions about that, you can always comment those. Also on my YouTube channel here, I have different playlists. So if you go over to the bench press tips playlist, you can see all the different bench press videos I have on there. And I do have some videos that go over this kind of stuff of how to get a bigger arch, of how to focus on your leg drive and what you should be doing as far as leg drive, and like how to get a proper setup with the proper starting position of the bar of your hands or anything like that. So you can always go check out those videos to kind of see more in detail, see actual examples of me actually laying down on the bench and doing that kind of stuff. And then you can maybe more visually see it rather than hear me just kind of explaining it. All right, so Eminem also asked a secondary question about rep ranges. So how important are rep ranges on accessories? If I undershoot or don't use enough weight sometimes, I'll ride out the set until I hit prescribed RPE and try to increase the next session. So that's one way to do it. There's different ways to do it. And, for me, who is an online coach, I'm not there for the lifter to maybe adjust the weight for them or tell them, hey, keep going until we hit a certain RPE, then tell them when to stop, everything like that. So I have to give them something and they have to go on their own and do it. So I will typically give a set, rep, and first set RPE for the accessory work. Oftentimes that's also because they pick what specific exercise they're doing for that muscle group. So for example, if they are doing triceps, I'll just put in their triceps. And then it'll be 3 sets of 10, first set RPE 7. So they can go pick what they want. Maybe they go to the cable machine with the little rope attachment and do cable tricep extensions or cable push downs, okay? So they will warm up to the RPE 7 rather than doing they get to their 10th rep and it's RPE 5 and they just do 2 more reps or 3 more reps. So what they'll do is warm up, let's say 30 pounds, you do a set of 10, you're like, okay, this is RPE 5. Go up to 50 pounds, take a minute or two rest, do the 50 pounds, 10 reps. Maybe now it's RPE 6. So maybe now you go up to 60 or 65 pounds. Again, take a minute or two rest, come back, do the 65 pounds for 10 reps, and now you hit your RPE 7. So now you hit your first set RPE and you have the weight 65 pounds. So that is your first working set. The other ones will warm up sets. And then you continue to do that weight for the rest of the sets. So if you have 3 sets, you do 2 more sets with 65 pounds. Again, the RPE may go up. So it may go 7, 7.58. And those would be your 3 sets of 10 with the first set RPE being a 7. So that's how I do it. The other way, if you do happen to undershoot, let's say it's RPE 6 and you're short on time, whatever, you just want to bang out the rest of the sets, you can just bang out the rest of the sets with that first set being RPE 6. And like you said, the next time, if you come back that same exercise and you have a training log, you can see the exercise, how many reps you did, what the weight was, what the RPE, and be like, okay, last time I undershot, it was RPE 6. This time I need to go heavier. And then you can adjust. And then the way that you have it there, you can do that, especially if you're coaching yourself and you're able to coach yourself in the moment, is that you can make adjustments to your program as you're doing it. So as you're doing, let's say, a dumbbell chest fly or tricep extensions or a bicep curl, you can go by feel and continue to do the reps until you get to your RPE. Now, depending on how much you undershot the weight, the reps may go much higher. So you may have intended let's say 8 reps at RPE 8, but you pick too light of a weight, you might be at 12 reps or 15 reps if you continue to push it that way. So you have to decide whether you want to do, less weight and then just continue to push reps up, or whether you'd rather just stop at 8 reps, consider it a warm-up weight, and go up in weight, so you get the heavier weights and get to the higher RP that you want to hit. As far as just in general how important rep ranges on accessories, for me, for powerlifting, the most important thing is that the person consistently gets the accessory work in. So it doesn't matter how perfect the program is, if the person's only doing it, 50% of the time, or they're never doing it, so like that. So you want them to get them to consistently do it 80, 90, 100% of the time. They're doing the accessory work. Then from there, again, it depends on where you are in the training cycle. So if we're farther out from a training cycle, I tend to do higher reps on accessory work. So I might have beginning of the week, especially if I do triceps, like, beginning and end of the week. Beginning of the week might be sets of 10, and the week might be sets of 8. Then we might increase the volume up further and go to, maybe from 3 sets to 4 sets, or even go to where the beginning of the week is set to 12 and the end of the week is set to 10. And that may also increase from 3 sets to 4 sets over time to the highest volume period of the training cycle. From there, as we transition to higher intensity and lower volume, then we may come back to the 10s and 8s and then go down into the 8s and 6s. So that way we're getting a full rep range of where the accessory exercise is. So for triceps, you're not always just doing 3 sets of 12 for 20 weeks or 24 weeks. You're messing around with different rep ranges from 12s down to 10s, down to 8s, down to 6s. So that way you're getting, different levels of intensity, different levels of volume and fatigue for that muscle group. Depending on what muscle group it is, I may adjust those a little bit. So for example, if it's like rear delts, sometimes I'll keep those higher. Sometimes I'll push those to like 15s, and every once in a while I even push those into 20s. Just because for the rear delts, I'm not necessarily trying to push them super heavy compared to triceps, where I will push them heavier. Other things like for biceps, if a person has like pain in the elbows and like that, sometimes doing very lightweight, very high rep work can help bring blood into the area and help release some pain. So sometimes I give people 12s, 15s, or 20s on biceps. Things like for, abs, if they're not doing planks for time, maybe they're doing some kind of ab exercise for 20, 25 reps. But for the most part, if it comes to, normal times with biceps, triceps, a vertical pull, a horizontal pull, a Bulgarian split squat, lunge, step up, usually it's in that 6 to 12 range. And depending on how many times a week they're doing it, then we might be doing 2 different protocols, like 10s and 8s, 8s and 6s, 12s and 10s, things like that. Hey, what's going on, Ian? You are one of my lovely 8 fans out there. Hopefully you're liking the new gym location for Boynton Barbell. I've seen the pictures and the videos and stuff like that. It looks cool. Haven't got a chance to go drop by there yet. It'll be interesting to see whether we can still do competitions there with a different setup and stuff like that. But might be a good spot to do competitions there, since like it's the one big area and versus the little rooms and stuff like that. So might be cool if we get into competition there next year. Let me see if we got any other questions on Instagram. If not, maybe we'll even stop it there, since it looks like it's about 45 minutes at this point. Now it doesn't look like there's any more questions on the grams, since I only gave people like 1 hour notice. Yeah, I mean, busy with competitions right now, but hopefully once things kind of slow down, maybe I'll pass by and check it out, or talk to Chris and be like, hey, you think we can run a competition there, and the neighboring businesses won't complain, and then we can kind of plan for that, and then I'll see it when I come up for January or whenever we do it. Hey, what's going on, Kurt? Yeah, I'll see you on Saturday. I'm flying out of here, Friday morning, get there Friday afternoon, maybe drop by the gym for the early equipment check, and people getting the rack heights and the little class they're going to do to teach people how to spot and load, and then working all day Saturday and Sunday, and then flying back Monday morning, getting back here to Miami a Friday afternoon or night, since it's going to be the time difference plus all the flying. But should be fun. Over 100 plus lifters I saw on the roster, some names I do know. Gonna be hanging out with some people that I haven't seen since nationals, so that should be fun. But we're coming up here on 50 minutes, so I guess I'll stop it there. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I'm gonna do this more often. I'm gonna check out how good the quality of the video was, how laggy it was, things like that, to see what kind of adjustments we can make, see if we can push it to 1080p, or if we're just gonna keep it here for now at 720p. Also right now I'm just connecting the camera with the USB. I'm gonna look into maybe getting a capture card as well, see if there's maybe some improvements doing it that way. And then maybe also testing out a different laptop. So this one is a Windows laptop, a Dell, and I also have a 4-year-old MacBook Pro that my cousin gave to me. So maybe next time I'll try out the setup on the MacBook Pro and see if that can handle it better, so that we can get a good quality stream for you all out there and do more of these Q&As. But really, if we have a good quality where it's not lagging and stuff, I can do stuff like form checks and show stuff more on my browser, and be able to, you guys actually be able to see what's going on and see what I'm drawing and see what I'm doing, everything like that, rather than like a squat video being choppy and stuff like that. So we'll see what we can do going forward. But other than that, I am done. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it and have a good rest of your day.